What's going on, everybody? Dogman Dan here. So I'm going to talk about the Prisma Tetra that we got through Barrow Katir, and it was there. I went ahead and I played around with it a little bit over the weekend. The one that I had here, and I added another Forma to it. Some of the Forma on it, messed around a little bit with mods, and I'll show you here in a minute what I came out with. So this is not a weapon that many people really enjoy, and I would say that most people are going to tell you that it's just a mastery fodder weapon. But again, it's depending upon how you want to play the game. Okay, it's actually a pretty decent weapon once you get it modded up well, especially if it's going to be something that's going to fit your playstyle. But it's not just like a straight up decent weapon or a good weapon. I was playing around with it after I got it all set up, and I was managing to run through enemies up until level 60 pretty decently, not too much of an issue. But once you started to hit level 60, it started to drop off a little bit. Again, that was also based off of other factors of things that I was doing as well. So what I found with this weapon is you've got to consider everything overall. So you've got to consider the Warframe that you're using. You've got to consider the abilities that the Warframe has. Warframe augment mods, weapon augment mods, things like that, to take it all into consideration on how to best set up a weapon. Okay. One of the big things with this weapon is that you can get the kinetic ricochet mod, which is specific to the Tetra, or the Prisma Tetra, and it's a bounce and travel, if you will. Now, you can go onto the website, the wiki, if you want to, and everything to tell you that punch through affects this strangely, and not to use punch through mods. I will tell you actually opposite of that. It's just my personal opinion. Playing with it, it is fun. If you don't have punch through on it, it's fun watching all your bullets fly around in every which direction, but they're not necessarily very effective in that respect. Once I added punch through in, I'm going through my enemies. Often I'm going through some of the terrain, of course. Maybe doesn't bounce as often or as much, but it still works very well if you played with the kinetic ricochet and the punch through. I don't always believe everything that I read until I've played it myself. Okay, but again, that's just me as it is, and it is a mod that's out there specifically for this weapon. You have other things where this weapon is good puncture damage, so effective against armor. It's good damage per shot. It's got a good status chance on it. There is no slash damage, but that's okay because we can work around that. Again, it's going to be based off of more than just the weapon itself. If you're looking at just the weapon itself, you're not going to get very far. One of the frames that I was trying and playing with a lot over the weekend was my Banshee Prime. She's still very squishy. So I was dying a lot, but I was testing out a few different things here, and I found that this weapon worked really well with Banshee Prime, especially if you're using the Sonic Fracture augment mod, which is the Sonic Boom augment that the enemy armor is reduced by 70% for 8 seconds. Of course, that scales. You can reduce the enemy armor by 100% with the proper power strength combination. But again, that's one of those extra factors you can take into that with building this weapon. It'll be okay if I use this Warframe, it's got this mod or this augment, that'll help do this, it helps take some more damage down, so forth and so on. You've got things like Rifle Amp for your Warframe as well, as an aura mod. That extra 27% of damage for your rifle. It is a rifle. That can help you out. So little things like that will help you play the weapon much better. And this is things that really consideration into almost every weapon is your other alternative pieces that can be linked into it to make something better than just looking at, oh, this is a weapon as it is. It's not going to be any better than this. Well, that's not true. When we synergize stuff and when we really look into how to make things work effectively, you can see that there's other things out there. I like it with Oberon, but I like most things with Oberon. Again, not in terms of how it will. Oberon obviously does not reduce enemy armor, but given the radiation procs that he does, that does help out in terms of crowd control and allowing you to rip through enemies a little bit quicker because they're too busy trying to take each other out while you're shooting them off. So, basically, the things I ended up with here, and I'll show you, are my focus is on puncture, of course, and the element that I went for, I only went one element on here, is corrosive. Together with something like the Sonic Fracture, or just another Warframe in general, using the rifle amp aura, things just tend to make this weapon so much better as it is. So, with that, I'm going to stop my rambling. Let me show you how I've got this thing set up. Give it a try if you like. Don't like. It's up to you. I'm never going to be one to tell you you have to play it this way. But mess around with it a little bit. See what you like. See what you don't like. Keep it as mastery fodder if that's what you want to keep it as. You want a fun, enjoyable weapon? Mid-level weapon? Yeah. This is pretty fun to play with from time to time. The only thing you have to do is keep an eye on your ammo pool. Just as FYI. Okay, so let's see what this Prisma Tetra can do here. So again, it's got a puncture. It's heavy towards puncture. It's got status on it. Not really much on critical in terms of stuff. But what I'm going for here is pretty specific. So let's just go ahead and swap over here so you can see it. Serration, split chamber, heavy caliber, piercing caliber. Okay, all these basic damage, multi-shot, extra damage. I lose some accuracy, but not really even something that's that noticeable with this particular weapon. Piercing caliber to get that puncture up there because I really want to get the puncture proc more. Though the way this thing really works, I can get both puncture and corrosive procs pretty smoothly, especially at 50%, and considering I'm at just about, multi-shot is almost 100%, right, with the rifle, so every 2 shots you're basically getting your status out of this anyway, which basically means almost every shot, give or take, okay? We're not going for true perfection here. I go high voltage malignant force here to get that status chance up and to give me my corrosive, as well as I ended up with shred on here. The fire rate is nice. The punch through is the nicer part here. Kinetic ricochet works well with shred. Without shred, these bullets are flying everywhere. With shred, we're going through our enemies, 1 or 2 enemies, and then they're bouncing out farther, which it just works well. Or you're going through a wall or 2, or a door, hitting the enemies, and then the bounce occurs. So the shred kinetic ricochet setup works out well. Now, there's other things you can do, of course, in terms of everything. With the recent Barra that came out, you can put the Bane of Corrupted on here if you want to go run this inside of the Void. Go ahead and swap on the Bane of Corrupted. I'd say swap out Kinetic Ricochet. Keep the rest of this on here. Maybe put that in that slot if you want to. That's one option. And even just as this is set up with Puncture Corrosive, you should do pretty well in the Void that way. You can also, if you get into the really, really high levels, you want to add the status where it stays on longer, go ahead and add Continuous Misery in there instead of Kinetic Ricochet. But personally, this is the setup that I'm liking. It's 4 Forma in. You can move things around again if you really wanted to. You don't have to use certain items. You can set it up however it seems to work for you. But this ultimately is how it works for me. If you have any comments or questions, please do feel free to leave them below, and hopefully this helps out. I'll catch you guys next time.